Good evening, everybody. It is us, the Woman's Voice, and tonight we will be analyzing and examining one of the most famous female authors, writers throughout the early 18, late 1700s. And this would be Mary Wollstonecraft and her most famous writing, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. And generally, we'll be talking about how women were very empowered by her writing. So, as mentioned above, Wollstonecraft saw women recognition in the educational system and gender equality throughout her writing A Vindication of the Rights of Women. She believed that women deserved to have equal opportunities in the educational system, the occupational, politics, social standards, and many other ideals in society. She also confronts and argues these social norms that were expected of women during this time frame. And generally, you would see this as being them being oppressed by their husbands and to take up the role as a housewife. And basically, to be more in depth, they were generally expected to perform any household chore that you would see, anything domestic. So you would see them as cooking meals, taking care of the children, doing any household chore. And so later on, when we'll be discussing in this newspaper article, this will be displayed as her impact and influence as a writer, and we'll be utilizing separate literary critiques done by R.M. James and other authors such as Ina Volkova. And all this will help go over the vindication of the rights of women. And authors that you may enjoy reading that actually covers the same idea will be John Stuart Mill and one of her other writings, The Subjection of Women.
All right. Next, the integration of women's rights prior to Wollstonecraft's vindication. So, before her novel was, I guess, out out in the public and published, women were seen to, I guess, they were stuck towards their roles such as housewives and mothers, just as Matt said beforehand. And just to add on, during this period of time, like the concept of women's having rights were seen as, I guess, it wasn't really an idea that everybody had in mind because they felt as if it wasn't it wasn't a topic that really was seen as like a benefit towards like um, social affairs, government affairs, just all that in general. And people weren't really ready to like see women have all these equal rights such as men. But however, there was there was a few people uh, among among the community where they would give light and they would just be very in tune with the idea of like what if women actually had the same like legal rights and equality as men do. But overall, this would only be seen as, I guess, sort of like a stray thought, and it wouldn't really be discussed in the public until many writings occurred, such as our main one right here, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. And in this uh, kind of like a manifesto, uh, Wollstonecraft would expose gender roles and many exclusions of women in, you could say, uh, jobs, occupations, education, just overall like in just like how they affected and I guess supported kind of like how everything was as a whole. And where Wollstonecraft would be very impactful was when she kind of generalized the idea that everybody on this earth has like their own choice and their own destiny, and whether or not they chose to, I guess, um, have their role and like stick to it would solely depend on themselves. However, this would be like a major stepping stone towards the integration of women, as Wollstonecraft's main argument was that um, women were were I guess they were able to, to really be independent on their own, which strikes the idea of like how everybody has, I guess, a say in their own life, which would which would contribute to women overall just being able to make their own, I guess, their own path in life and fulfilling their own destinies.
So one of the next, I guess you say, empowerments that Mary Wollstonecraft did was that her rhetorical use of examples and her connections with these throughout her writing. So to begin off, during this time period, people undermined most of Wollstonecraft's arguments for multiple reasons. One of the main issues was that she was a female writer, so everything she would say, most of like mainly men and everyone in society wouldn't take it as serious because of her being a female. However, despite her being a female writer, she was still able to successfully open people's eyes on how women were being oppressed during this time period. With her combination of logical reasoning through observations, utilizing illustrative examples as supportive evidence, and the balance of using emotional and rational language, they all extremely helped her send her message across. So, one of her to focus on her illustrative reasoning, you can see it was really highly effective throughout her reading or throughout her writing. She wanted the readers to fully think and reflect upon gender inequality. She would use like where this is where the emotional and rational balance comes in. She would try to have some kind of emotional tone to the different examples she brought up. In addition to this, she would also rely on logical reasoning she would get from the observations to help understand her beliefs. For example, she challenges the Rousseau gender biased educational system because of the lack of evidence he provided. She utilizes her own observations and uses it logically to argue against this. She also states that I have probably had an opportunity of observing more girls in their infancy than J.J. Rousseau, and I can also recollect my own feelings, and I have looked steadily around me.
Society's reception of the writing. A vindication of women's right was a very unpopular opinion at the time when it was initially released. Not only was her writing an unpopular opinion, but the idea as a whole was very unpopular. Most writers, most people at the time didn't agree with what Wollstonecraft had to present in her paper. Things such as equality amongst the genders, equal education, and equal in the workforce. This alone made the paper, her writing, seen as controversial, very controversial at the time. Demands for political participation by women or changes in society behavior was regarded as unessential and absurd. Generally, the reviews were split among the party, but the reception of Wollstonecraft's work and her followers, Mary Robinson and Mary Hayes, were strong and continued to build over the years. Later down the line, her opinion got more brought up to and overall completely made became more popular overall as opinion. Hers and many other authors.